What do you say if we just go straight to it? Let's start with AI. There's a lot of noise out there, so I'm getting curious. How do you perceive it? How dangerous is AI?
Well, it really depends. How do you define dangerous, right? I think that's the fundamental question to answer first.
Do you define it?
I think there's different types of dangers with AI. So, kind of four big categories I'd put on it. I'd say we have physical dangers, right? We have the danger of misinformation. We have the danger of polarization. That could be political or otherwise, right? So people becoming more isolated in their beliefs because it's all they're exposed to. And then I think we have the danger of data misuse, right? So physical dangers, misinformation, polarization, and then data misuse, I'd say are kind of the four categories of dangers that we have.
Let's start with physical dangers. Can it kill us? Will it kill us?
I think it can. The analogy I always like to use is the analogy of an ant pile. Humans kill ants on a daily basis, right? Just by stepping on them. And the reality is most humans don't have a hate for ants. They don't have intent when they wake up to go kill ants. The reality is that ants are in the course, they're in the path for many humans, and the ants are destroyed as a matter of course and not out of intent. And my point there is that if an AI is optimized towards a goal where humanity stands in the way of the path, it will destroy humanity as a course of action. And a lot of people think this means that the AI has to be programmed to be evil. And that's really not the case. The reality is that every AI model is optimized to a specific goal, right? And sometimes humanity stands in the way of the AI pursuing that goal. So for example, suppose we build an AI model that's designed to find ways to reduce global warming, right? And this is a goal that we as humanity stand behind, and we say this is a great goal. The AI is not programmable. It is programmed to create a world where global warming is less of a problem, right? Great goal. Well, the logic of the AI may go, okay, global warming is caused largely by carbon emissions. Carbon emissions are caused by humans. Therefore, if we get rid of humans, global warming problem is solved. That's the way that the AI thinks, right? It has no concept of humanity. It does not care about us. And so the reality is we can program an AI not to be evil. We can program it instead to a goal that we see as a good goal. But if humanity stands in the way of the AI accomplishing that goal, it will destroy us as a course of action, right? I think my greatest fear is probably that we don't know how dangerous it is until it's too late, right? Because this is a technology that really gets out of hand very, very quickly, right? It escalates very quickly. And we've seen that even just in the past 12, 24 months in terms of how much more advanced AI models have gotten. And then we can look also at isolated cases, right? So we could look at, for example, like autonomous vehicles. If you're driving in an autonomous vehicle that's powered by AI, you have some level of physical danger there, right? So I think the physical danger is increasing as AI becomes more ingrained in, if you want to say, the physical world, and as opposed to digital only.
Totally. I mean, being AI part of technology advantage or an advanced technology, I can relate to what about the development and deployment of nuclear technology in the mid-20th century. It led to atomic bombings of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, showcasing the unforeseen destructive power of technology. But now, I think the danger is more subtle. What about the proliferation of social media algorithms that have been associated with issues like online radicalization, misinformation, even cyberbullying, and highlighting the unintended consequences of technology?
Yeah, so social media, I think is a great example, right? Because we can look at social media as kind of the precursor to a lot of these AI technologies. And there's a lot of studies done about kind of what the effects are, right? In terms of these social media platforms and misinformation, how they relate to the physical world, and how they cause people to take action in the physical world, right? So here's, I think, one of the biggest issues we've seen with social media is polarization. where you are only maybe engaging with content that resembles your beliefs. And before you know it, that's the only content that you're seeing, right? So it kind of distorts your worldview because you begin to think that your perspective is the only perspective out there. I mean, you become more and more distant from other perspectives. Eventually you don't even see it in your feed. And the reason for that is because these social media platforms are financially incentivized to show you content that keeps you engaged, right? And a lot of that is that people want to see content that they either agree with or strongly disagree with, right? They don't want to kind of see the middle ground, right? So these platforms are designed to show you content that keeps you engaging with it. And that content is often a distorted view of reality. And so as long as these social media platforms are financially incentivized to show you that content, that is what they are going to show you, right? Now with AI, we're kind of at this interesting stage where the business model is not fully ironed out yet, right? Or perhaps a better way to say that is that there are multiple possible business models. So I think there's different ways that these AI companies have of approaching this where we don't end up in the same spot, right? So, I was happy when OpenAI and ChatGPT started charging monthly subscriptions for access to the tool. And the reason I was happy about that is because now the user of ChatGPT becomes the customer and they don't become the product, right? And on social media, it's very different. On social media, you are the product. Your data is the product. And the customer is actually the advertising companies, right? The companies that are running ads on Meta or wherever else. So, I think we have a chance to kind of redo that in a lot of ways and not make the same mistake. And I hope that these companies look at social media and say, hey, maybe we don't want our users to be the product. Maybe we want our users to be the customer. And then we design better products. We design more data privacy centric products, right? And ultimately don't end up in the same spot that we did with social media. But I think it's too early to say if that will happen or not. I think it's too early to say whether it's going to be profitable to have the users be the customers. And I think there's some things pushing against that. So we could look at kind of the failure of Twitter recently to begin selling subscriptions, right? Paid subscriptions. Been horribly ineffective at doing that. A very, very small percentage of Twitter users who actually pay for a subscription. And so things like that are kind of warning signs to these AI companies that might scare them off from not running ads and not selling user data. But that's my hope. My hope is that the users become the customers and not the product. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we can learn from social media and the way that that's kind of become ingrained in our lives.
Do you think that hope you say, and I say this in a nice way, don't you think that hope is a kind of night?
Yeah, I do.
Or?
Yeah, I do. I do in some ways, but I also think, to be clear, I don't have that hope for the existing platforms, the existing social media platforms. I do have that hope for new AI models coming out, right? And that hope was kind of further inspired by ChatGPT and OpenAI charging for subscriptions, right? Because here's the thing. Social media, it's very hard to charge for a subscription to a social media platform for a couple of reasons. Number one, most people don't want to admit how much they use and or like social media, right? So a lot of people don't want to admit that they are using these platforms enough to justify the cost of a subscription, right? So that's one kind of one isolated issue with social media. Second thing with social media that we could really look at kind of and compare to AI, I guess, is how ingrained it becomes in our lives, right? In terms of what we're using it for. So ChatGPT, for example, you could use for a multitude of things, right? You could use it to help plan your workouts. You could use it during your job. You could use it to create a schedule for you. You could use it to proofread your emails. You can use it for a lot of different things. Social media really serves one of two purposes, either entertainment or education, and that's basically it, right? So when we look at something like ChatGPT, here's what I think is a possible model, right? Is that people begin using kind of free versions of it enough that it becomes ingrained in their daily lives, and then OpenAI starts charging for it, right? They start restricting features. They start getting it to a point where you realize, hey, I really have come to rely on this technology, and for $10 a month, I could continue using it in the way that I have been using it, right? And if it can replace other things that you'd be paying for. So if, say, you have an app for planning your workouts, right? And now you don't have to have that app anymore because ChatGPT can do it. Say you have a subscription to some sort of magazine that sends you recipe ideas, and ChatGPT can generate recipe ideas for you. Eventually, perhaps it becomes cost effective for you to have a subscription to ChatGPT. With social media, there's no point where it becomes cost effective, right? Because study after study shows that social media basically does nothing positive for you, right? Generally speaking. Instead, it takes a lot of your time, right? It's not replacing a service that you're already paying for. And so when you start paying for a social media platform, it's an additional expense above what you have now, right? It doesn't replace any expenses. It doesn't make financial sense. And so I think that's a fundamental difference between social media and AI platforms. And that depends a lot on the AI platform too, right? So, let's say we look at autonomous vehicles. Well, you're paying for the AI that's in an autonomous vehicle, right? So say you buy a Tesla, you're paying for the AI. That's part of the cost of the vehicle. The Tesla doesn't then have to go and sell your data. They're making their money from you as the customer, right? So I think it depends what type of AI we look at, right? If we look at large language models, I think there's a viable business model to charge monthly subscriptions, or certainly to make money on the APIs from them. If we look at self-driving cars, I think there's money to be made in selling the autonomous aspects of it. And so I think there's a lot of other possible business models versus social media, which doesn't really have many options in terms of how to monetize it. And advertising is ultimately very profitable as well, right? You can run ads without having a huge team. So that's the other thing. We can talk later kind of about limitations and advancements of AI. But one of those limitations is having a team, right? So some of these companies, they're resorting to ads because they don't have the team to build other forms of monetization in, right? Or to scale with them. And so ads are kind of something that they can roll out relatively low cost, relatively low labor, and that makes them an effective business model. And users also don't have a ton of recourse, right? If all the social media platforms are monetizing in the same way, a user doesn't have a bunch of recourse in terms of switching to a different platform or taking other action to protect their data.